Hello, and welcome to an adventure like no other. Far more than what you have known, there is something far more to be known than you can ever know. And it is all about you, the real you, your real awareness with your intuitive senses. You were never taught that the real you, your real awareness, is operating 5 bodies in cause and effect, restricting creation. You have been taught to think that you are only a one-dimensional human person, with a mind and emotions, and with a very short lifespan on this planet Earth. More than what your mind can grasp is your intuitive senses that can be opened to see beyond all your restrictions. You have always had an opening to see beyond what you have known, and this has been purposely kept from you, and this is where you have heard rumors and stories about your nightly dreams. Your so-called dreams is your opening to your intuitive senses that will allow you, the personal you, to excel beyond what you have previously known. Everyone has intuitive senses, and very few people take advantage of what is possible by recognizing something more than their mind can understand. Creation has its place for all of us, and then there is all life, which is far more than anything than what can become with creation. Everything we experience is necessary for us to survive with whatever we choose and decide our life to be. New Kevin Smith is the great witness to something more than what can be taught and learned in any school. It can be so that when anyone first listens to Kevin's intuitive side experiences, also known as real side experiences, from what their personal mind has known, Kevin's manner of expression will at first be rather different to comprehend. This is where this introduction and reading the new books and Facebook groups will help. Have fun deciding. Dwayne the Great Writer and Seer.
This real side experience would begin with my facing and releasing certain attachments as they pertained to a previous lifetime. As the singular imperative of the isness is that of continuous recognition of its own endlessness, the means by which this is accomplished is through the recognizing of itself from a position afforded that is aside from the reality that it is. For if everything is, how can that which is everything be determined unless a mechanism can be provided through an assumed position which presents as that which isn't everything? Logically then, what isn't everything must be something, and it is through the simulators that parts, pieces of the everything can be as though contained in isolation from the whole isness everything. These pieces or parts can be installed within a consciousness, which is the engine room by where effected are the body forms, which can decipher and decode these idea pieces into a simulation, which awareness then can experience. And now provided is a comparative tool, whereas we create the ideas that we do via the body-vehicle mechanics, as we move into positions, creationally speaking, where we are free will generating these ideas, and where we have the conception of the secondary personal self as the creating of these ideas of thought and emotion automatically removes us from the real awareness, isness, everything position and into the personal self, and where, as we cease free will creating of these ideas, so our nowness, real awareness, everything position is restored. We have then the comparison between that which is assimilated, fabricated, the idea parts and pieces, with that which is everything, the true reality, and eventual recognition of the difference, and indeed the isness the real awareness is a part of can be so, which becomes then greater recognition the is has of its own endlessness. A mechanism, as I said, where the isness formulates the ability to recognize more so its own endlessness from a position which is aside from the essence of its everything reality. Going through the creational process then, as the secondary personal self is over-utilized, the real awareness forgotten and disconnected from, as we remain immersed in the personal self-consciousness over the many lifetimes that we will, as the creation rather takes on a life of its own, we will be in full agreement with every idea as a self-created or created by others and agreed with, that formulates as the consciousness and effects the experiences and lifetimes that it does. The moment will come where the real awareness that actually animates through the body forms establishes a contact with its creation again, and attempts to bring the creation on board, that it aligns its intent with the real intent, that of the real awareness, recognizing the isness it is a part of, as is the real purpose of the simulators. Up until now, full attachment with the consciousness construct, all the ideas it comprises of has been so, which equates to being the complete effect of its every idea that has manifested as all we have experienced since we initially entered the simulator. As we have a new body form each lifetime around, including a new memory vehicle, all previous idea agreements that had effected as every lifetime prior to our current one will be transferred to the consciousness backup system, the subconscious, but despite our then being unconscious to the vast bulk of the consciousness, we still are the effects of the ideas the subconscious comprises of. That to stand as the beings of real awareness light we actually are, in the endless real universes of the years, we have to sever attachment to every created idea, for the only position a piece or part of the everything can be experienced is through a creation, where these idea pieces can be isolated from the whole isness everything and provided as a simulation, as even holding to a single idea, then we resign ourselves accordingly to the simulators. And so, with an intent set with the recognition of the ears, so automatically will we be undertaking a process of effacing and releasing the entirety of the consciousness, of its every idea, including the subconscious, which will comprise of the idea agreements that had effected as every lifetime prior to our current one, every former lifetime situation, circumstance, and including the ideas that are the body forms of others, that they too were able to be effect manifested into our experiences. As we go about this process, automatically in a conjunction with intent set with the ears, as I said, we may be shown glimpses of this idea releasing on the real side, for as we face these ideas of the consciousness, we affect their nature as real side experience, and should we be releasing agreements that pertain to prior lifetimes, along with the individuals and our own assumed body forms in association, so we may occasionally be shown the affected simulation in relation to the agreements and attachments we are releasing, glimpses of these previous lifetimes that were the ideas affected, that we now are relinquishing attachment with. In this real side experience, so I would be doing just this, releasing all attachment to the ideas that affected as a previous lifetime, though in reality every idea that affects as every situation and lifetime is present in the nowness of the real awareness reality, and only from the personal self perspective, as the consciousness mechanics present the illusion of a past, present, of time, space, does it seem that the lifetimes are situated in a linear progression of sequences. As I said, facing the agreements and their subsequent release would manifest the lifetime as real side simulation in association. For I would find myself now in the form of a bipedal, two-legged feline body type, part of a species of these walking cat people, which is a relatively common expression of a body type throughout multi-dimensional creation, as I have shared and revealed over the years and in previous real side experiences. The bipedal feline form just another expression of a body type as effected from a particular consciousness, as through the consciousness design will be reflected in equal accordance our creational positioning, circumstances, and the body forms we are operating through. That wherever I was creationally placed, whichever planet it was, and whenever in so-called time, the cat species I was a part of were in a constant conflict with another species. For indeed, the various expressions of cat species tend to be more benevolently inclined, at least in more recent times. At the current moment, most are technologically orientated, space-faring, and indeed many of the various varieties of the cat people have been embarking on their own respective awareness processes, stepping up and assisting with the galactic projects and life and awareness beneficial endeavors, etc. Impressions suggested that this previous lifetime, as a part of this particular cat species, was so at a point in the distant past, prior to the various expressions of the feline bipedal form developing their technologies and being able to take to the stars in their spacecrafts, etc. For as one of these cat people, so I and the others present would be operating in rather rudimentary, basic circumstances, but we still had the ability where construction was concerned, even in the absence of as yet to be developed somewhere down the line more advanced technology. For the homes as established by the cat people of their planet would take more so the forms of the approximation of human earth-based castles, rather medieval in the overall themes and appearances. As I said, the cat people of this planet were in constant conflict with either an altogether different species they co-inhabited the planet with, or another species that were invading. I was unable to determine exactly which. But the species they were locked into a conflict with would be of a similarly lacking of technology level seemingly, as through the endless battles between them there would be no decisive victor or outcome, suggesting that if the enemies of the cat people were from beyond their planet, the technology they brought to bear wasn't enough to eradicate the felines, as the overall situation was rather a stalemate and had been so for the longest time. For indeed, what transpires between individuals and indeed a species is according to agreement as shared between them, as it is the ideas that are consciousness installed that effected is the simulation then experienced. For a species to eradicate another, so must this be as an idea installed in the target species' overall consciousness, by whatever means and mechanisms this was achieved, generally via in a direct agreement securing surface ideas that have appeal but which have additional ideas attached in association along the lines of, say, intentionality to subjugate or destroy, and absent of this agreement's successful installation, that of destruction at the hands of another species, so this cannot be the affected simulation as shared between the two species. This was very much the case here. Neither side had the agreements that facilitated the ability of the other to destroy them, and so this was effectively a conflict without end. The species in opposition of the felines was never revealed, though I suspect they were expressions of the reptilians, as this was occurring in the long ago mists of time, and perhaps as far back as where the reptilians were initiating their gradual conquest of the entire simulator through force of arms, and where the technologies they could bring to bear were not quite as yet adequate for the task. This then would have the two species karmically embroiled with each other, for regardless of the nature of the shared experience between body forms, that the experience is shared reveals the ideas that are the associated body forms have been agreed with and consciousness installed by both parties. And as all the ideas of the consciousness are retained attachment-wise, until we reach a point of consciousness idea facing and releasing through the process of awareness, every individual and body type we ever had association with, made possible through the ideas of them being a consciousness implanted, that affected them into our experience, so they all can at any moment potentially feature in our experiences again, real side and physical level. And in regards to the nature of our engaging with other individuals or indeed species, taking the form of conflict, so the emotional component that will be applied to situations of adversity and altercation will enhance the potency of the agreement we have with them, and more likely will be effect manifested each lifetime around constant encounters with those in particular we had conflicted with. Species locked into a war with each other would very likely project themselves into future lifetimes, and where the inclination to conflict with each other again is a constant, as underlying everything will be the subconscious undercurrents of our past lifetime associations, that although we will be unconscious of, will motivate our behaviour in relation to those we have seemingly met for the first time in our current lifetime. For despite never having met an individual or species before from the current lifetime conscious perspective, we may have an instant disliking of them or feel the urge to bestow harm upon them, as has been the essence of our engagements with them for all the lifetimes we have interacted with them previously. And this constant back and forth could go on indefinitely until the nature of the ideas and in relation to the ideas of others is released. Present in this castle with my cat associates in this prior lifetime would be an individual, human in appearance, who would not have been featuring at the time of this lifetime experience, but as though presenting himself here that only I could see. For as I said, as we face these past lifetime agreements and attachments, we experience the simulation that was effected from them, as though replaying an old movie. but where other individuals can, if they so choose, insert themselves into the replay also, but in such a way that they are not in any way apparent to any of the experiential lifetime replayed participants, only visible to the individual whose agreement of facing and releasing experience this is. Impressions suggested this human featuring in the past life replay was a real guide, and although his actions made little sense visually to my personal self, impressions further indicated he was assisting in regards to the removal of the tap lines I had in association with this past lifetime, the body form I once was, the feline species I was a part of, and whatever the other species were that was in conflict with them. Ultimately, we decide as to our attachments. If we are adamant in the retaining of them, then as the deciders, the guides cannot violate our free will choice to be the effects of whatever restricting ideas we desire to cling to. But if the individual is intent in their releasing, the guides will, if they so choose, step in and assist the process, as was the case here. Interestingly, the guide would draw my attention to a wall of the castle, where a parchment would be attached, and inscribed upon it would be words written that presented as almost an advertisement, where other species were invited to assume the position of enemies, by which the feline species could then have a conflict with. For as a species always decides their overall experience, no other species can step into any role in association with them unless the species has the agreement consciousness installed that this is possible. The cat species had either consciously or through subconscious agreement had the collective species consciousness implanted idea of other species to be in oppositional conflict with them. This then affected the potential role that other species, if they so chose, could assume, like creating a movie and making available the roles that actors can step into, and the opposing species of the felines had indeed fulfilled the role as afforded by the cats, but as I said, through the specific parameters of the agreement between the two species, so there could be no decisive outcome and a victor. That this seemed to be part of the overall design of the consciousness of the cat species I was once a part of, that of an open agreement welcome mat, that other species could assume the role of their enemies and become embroiled in a conflict accordingly. And should the current species they were battling against have not chosen to assume the provided role in the cat people's experience, so the invitation was open to any other that could step into the available position, represented here symbolically with the parchment presenting as though an open contract for any species to sign and become locked into a battle with the cat species. I would now exit the castle of the cats. My form would change from one of their kind to that of my current human form, impressions suggesting this represented my relinquishing attachment to the idea agreements that had affected myself into the previous lifetime circumstances I had outlined. I would proceed along a series of random dirt roads, and eventually would come across what seemed to be a building that a number of other individuals, human in appearance, were trying to break into. I would approach the building and rather dismantle it with my bare hands, the humans who were trying to access it scattering in alarm, and within I would find a selection of what impressions suggested were gemstones of extreme value. I would be reminded of an experience as shared by a new friend fairly recently, that of securing coins of value that represented the attaining of greater levels, literally speaking, of awareness. This would be a similar representation, that as I held the gems in my hand, they would merge and become a singular gemstone, as though perhaps indicating that as I had released still further of my attachments to ideas of the consciousness in relation to my lifetime as one of the cat people, that as we release the ideas, we become more so as the real awareness we actually are, that which has been for the longest time somewhat encased within all the ideas we carry. That in reality we are deconstructing our idea encasement until we are liberated from every idea, and we stand as the nowness of our true being selves, aside from all ideas of creation and the personal self. And now there would be a picture on the only wall still standing of the building I had dismantled, depicting Rebisar as how he appears as presented by Dwayne and Ava. The picture would come to life, Rebisar becoming animated and emerging from the picture, and I would place the gemstone into his hand. It was as though, perhaps, he were assisting in the maintenance of my current state of awareness that the gemstone represented, the gemstone placed in his safe keeping. For our journeys to the recognition of the ears can be as a series of stages and steps, as swiftly a process as we so decide, and the sense was that I was taking a momentary pause, so to speak, before proceeding onwards again, and Rebisar ensuring the position I currently had attained awareness speaking was maintained. Although in reality it is my choice as to the maintenance and indeed subsequent progression, and the moment I would proceed again, the gemstone would be returned to my keeping as the representation went, or perhaps an alternative representation would be afforded as to indicating my continued process awareness speaking. That as one possible view anyway. Undoubtedly there are many others. I did, for example, harbour the momentary concern with the personal self on waking, that as the gemstone perhaps represented awareness, that by giving the gemstone to Rebisar, I had in some way forfeited or abandoned the process of awareness, as though returning it to the guide. But I would determine that my intent with the ears was still cemented, and so I would settle for my initial viewpoint and interpretation.
Okay, Kevin, that's terrific, and I always like how you start off as a reminder as to what the focus is here, etc. And how you describe it is just excellent, and that is so because we are not a path or a teaching or some idea or whatever. It's all about isness. That's what it is, and recognizing it. It's really that simple. And so this is our journey, little by little, and that's so cool. Your whole experience is so cool. So again, we know our intent. You know your intent. So no matter what happens, you know that yourself. And thank you so much. That's a great experience to share. Yeah, help a lot of people as they learn to recognize it. Thank you. New